Dante was a man who traveled through hell and saw terrible things. And he also saw very famous people, like, for example, Cleopatra and Julius Caesar and many others. If you want to know how this whole story happened, come with me. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and if you want more videos about Dante, more videos about demons, leave a like, share the video, and also leave a comment. You have no idea how much that helps me. Thank you so much. The story begins with Dante being in a dark forest, or rather a dark jungle. How he got there, it's not really clear, but according to him, he must have fallen asleep somewhere along the way and woke up there. This jungle was so terrifying that just remembering it makes Dante start trembling with fear. The jungle was so cruel and so dark that even death seemed like a good thing compared to it. At one point in that place, Dante finds himself at the mountain's base. When he looks up, he sees some rays of light and is filled with hope, so he decides to climb that mountain. Dante saw a leopard in front of him. No matter how much Dante tried to get around it, somehow the leopard always ended up in front of Dante, blocking his path. So he started looking up and he kept seeing those rays of light. And once again he was filled with hope, and after several attempts he managed to get past the leopard. But he had no time to celebrate before he saw another beast, a lion, before him. And the situation got even worse when he saw that a she-wolf was also coming in his direction. The lion seemed to be advancing toward me with its head held high, and so hungry and furious that even the air itself seemed to fear him. And then came a skinny and greedy she-wolf, whose sight made my soul so heavy with fear that I no longer saw any hope. On that climb, the she-wolf advanced slowly and made me go down, pushing me back to that place where sunlight does not enter. After coming down the hill, Dante noticed that there was a figure approaching him, and he asked, please, that the man not do anything bad to him. But then the figure replied, man, no more. The figure answered, man, I once was. I was born in Mantua in the time of Julius Caesar, and I lived in Rome during the reign of Augustus. I was a poet who told the story of Aeneas fleeing Troy after the fire. And you, why don't you climb the precious mountain, the beginning and cause of all glory? Then Dante recognized him as the spirit of the poet Virgil and was filled with happiness. And he replied that he had even tried to climb the mountain, but on the way, 3 animals appeared that made him turn back. He even asked Virgil to help him climb the mountain again. However, the spirit replies that those animals wouldn't leave there anytime soon, and also that Dante's journey was actually a different one. Virgil would be Dante's guide to a place of torment where the dead go to try for a second chance, where they suffer in the hope that one day they might go to a better place. And then, if Dante wants to go to heaven, he would have another guide, since Virgil's entry is blocked in that realm. Poet, I replied, I beg you, in the name of that God you did not know, help me escape from this evil or from something even worse. I will follow you to those places you described, so that I may see the gate of St. Peter and the sad sufferers you told me about. Then Dante follows me and Virgilio. When the journey began, it was already getting dark. After thanking the muses for the story that had barely begun but was already in his memory, Dante told Virgilio that he was insecure because he didn't know if he was worthy of such a journey. Virgilio then, wanting to reassure Dante, began to tell the story of how he had come to him. He said he was there in limbo with other poets when suddenly a beautiful woman appeared. "O generous man true in soul," she said, "help me rescue a friend who is lost in the dark forest. Go with your eloquence and help him so that I may be comforted. I am Beatrice who asks you to go. I come from heaven, and to heaven I shall return. It was love that brought me here, and it is love that makes me speak." Virgil said that he then asked the woman if she wasn't afraid of a place as dark as that forest. Beatrice said no, that they should be afraid of real things that could actually hurt, like, for example, not helping someone she cared about so much. At that moment, she disappears, and Virgilio goes to Dante, just as he is running away from the beasts. To top it off, Virgilio says that Dante shouldn't be afraid of anything, since there were people watching over him from heaven. "O merciful one, who helped me and kindly answered her request, With your words, I became willing once again. Let's go, for now we both want the same thing. You will be my guide, and I will follow you." And so they followed the path. At a certain moment, the two came across a kind of gate. On top of it were written the following words: "Through me you go to the city of woe. Through me you go to eternal pain. Through me you go among the lost people. Justice moved my high creator, who made me with divine power, supreme wisdom, and primal love. Before me nothing was created except eternal things. I endure forever. Abandon hope. Who brings Dante?" Of course, when he read that, he got very scared. He looked at Virgilio and asked what those words meant. The spirit then replied that he didn't need to be afraid of that, but he couldn't be weak either. That was the place he had mentioned before, where the suffering souls who ended up getting lost in their choices during life stayed. Virgilio takes Dante's hand, smiles reassuringly, and leads him through the portal. As soon as I entered, I heard horrible screams, sighs, and cries that echoed through the starless darkness. The laments were so intense I couldn't hold back my tears. Sorrowful cries, quarrels, complaints, and angry voices in various languages created a tumult like a storm. With my head already filled with horror, I asked, "Master, who are these people who suffer so much?" "This is the fate of souls who neither sought divine good nor evil," replied the master. "They mingle with that choir of angels who are neither faithful nor unfaithful. Both heaven and hell reject them." Dante also asked Virgilio why those souls lamented so much. What was the punishment they suffered? The poet then replies that those souls had no right to salvation, nor to death. The world, mercy, and justice would forget them. Dante could even see them, but he should just walk past. Then I looked and saw that souls formed a great crowd, running after a flag that never stopped. They were all naked, exposed, and stung by swarms of wasps that wounded them all over their bodies. The blood ran down, along with their tears, to their feet, where diseased worms still gnawed at them. Looking further ahead, Dante saw another crowd on the banks of a great river, waiting for the boat of Charon, the pale old man who was responsible for steering the boat of souls. Charon arrives and says, "Evil souls, I have come to take you to eternal punishment. Abandon all hope of seeing heaven again, for I will take you to eternal darkness, to fire and to ice." When he saw me, he shouted, "You living soul, stay away, only the dead come here." Seeing that I was no longer moving, calmer, he said, "You must go to the other port, where another larger boat will take you across." At that moment, Virgilio tells Charon that he should calm down, because Dante hadn't done anything wrong. Charon then falls silent, but you could still see in his red eyes that the anger was still there. He stood by his boat, watching over the souls who wept and boarded it. From time to time, he would grab his oar and hit those souls who were stalling. Then he would get on the boat and cross the river, and even before reaching the other side, there were already several other souls waiting. While all this was happening, a strange wind appeared in the sky, along with an earthquake and a red flash. It was so strong, Dante fainted. The same crash that made Dante faint was the same one that woke him up. When he looked, he stood at the infernal pit's edge. He even tried to look down to see if he could see anything, but he only saw eternal darkness. Virgilio calls him and says they have to keep going. But Dante notices something strange on his master's face. He was a bit pale. It looked like he was afraid. "How do you expect me to follow you calmly if you're scared?" I asked, "Isn't it fear?" He answered, "Compassion brightens my face, because of the anguish of the helpless people who suffer here. Let's go, for we still have a long road ahead of us." The two walked through the first circle, where, surprisingly, there were no screams, just sighs. Since Dante wasn't asking anything, Virgilio himself decided to explain who those spirits wandering there were. "These poor souls didn't sin, but they can't go to heaven," he explained, "because they weren't baptized. Here are the unbaptized children and those who lived before Christ, like me. Here we have no suffering, but we also have no hope." Dante pitied the souls, wondering how many good people might be lost here. So, He asked Virgilio if he or anyone else there could somehow ascend to the heavens, and the spirit replied, "I was new to this place," replied Virgilio. "When a powerful king came here, he bore the victory sign on his crown. He took Adam, Noah, Moses, Abraham, David, Israel, Rachel, and others with him. He chose, and he must know. Before those souls were taken, no other human soul had achieved salvation." As they talked, the two kept walking until some lights could be seen, and then some voices were heard. Those voices were calling for a video and belonged to famous poets Horace, Homer, Ovidio, and Lucan. They talked for a while only with Virgilio, and then greeted Dante, making him almost a sixth member of the group. They walked until they reached a lit castle surrounded by a stream. They crossed the stream as if the waters were actually solid ground. Then they passed through 7 gates until they reached a very green place with other people talking. They climbed a hill, and from there Dante saw several other historical figures in that place, like Caesar, Aristotle, Ptolemy, Zeno, Socrates, and more. Dante even got excited to talk to all those people, but he didn't have time for that. Virgil and Dante bid farewell to the other poets and moved on alone through a place without light. When they entered the second circle, they saw King Minos, who was gnashing his teeth and welcoming and judging everyone. In hell, Minos acquired a serpent's tail. Then he listened to what the souls had to say, judged them, and wrapped his tail around his own body. Each time the tail wrapped around, it was the number of circles the soul would descend. There was a crowd of souls around him. They were heard, and then they were thrown into the infernal pit. Minos saw me and paused his duty, saying, "Oh, you who enter the asylum of pain, be careful who you trust and how you enter. It's easy to get in, but don't be deceived. Why shout?" Virgilio replied to the judge of the dead, "You can't stop this journey. What is willed here can be done. This is willed. Ask for nothing more." Minos fell silent as they continued walking. Suddenly, some very strange noises began to appear. They sounded almost like cries and lamentations. Since the place was very dark, this noise sounded almost like a whistle that happens at sea during storms. The first and loudest ones came from a kind of giant whirlwind that kept tossing souls from one side to the other with a wind that never stopped. In that whirlwind, Dante recognized some people, and Virgilio began to explain who they were. "The first one, whose story you must know," explained the master, "was the Empress of Peoples of Many Tongues. That's Semiramis, Nino's wife and successor. Following her is CQ's widow, who took her own life for love. There, you see Cleopatra, Luxuriosa, Vigilina, Achilles, Paris, and Tristan. He showed me countless others whose lives were ruined by love, one by one." Surprisingly, Dante wanted to speak to 2 souls so close and light they seemed part of the wind. However, Virgilio said he should wait a bit until the whirlwind's wind calmed down a little. Then he called the 2 as Dante did. Once he saw the wind had calmed, he called out to the souls, and they were Paolo and Francesca, who were brother-in-law and lover, and ended up being killed by the betrayed husband while they were reading the romance of Lancelot and Queen Guinevere. While one of the spirits told everything that happened, the other cried a lot. It affected Dante so much that he cried until he collapsed. When he woke up, Dante was already in the third circle, with more souls and more torments everywhere. This place was always having a cold rain, with hail and snow falling on rotten mud, where there were some souls that remained buried. In this place, there was also Cerberus, the 3-headed hellhound, who kept barking angrily at those souls. He had a black beard, red eyes, a big belly, and sharp claws with which he tore the souls apart. The spirits kept screaming in pain as they tried to dodge that freezing rain. When the dog saw the 2 travelers, he opened his 3 mouths and showed his fangs, barking furiously. However, Virgilio quickly grabs some of that rotten mud and throws it into Cerberus's mouth, who then calms down. The 2 of them start walking through that mud, stepping on those spirits, which actually felt like they were stepping on nothing. and none of them reacted except for one who stood up in front of Dante, who was Siaco, a flutist. And after a brief conversation with the poet, he went back into the mud. Dante then turns to Virgilio and says the following: "Master, regarding this torment, will it grow? Will it remain the same? Or will it be lessened? After the final judgment, recall your teachings. The more perfect a being, the more it feels, whether pleasure or pain. Although these damned souls can never reach perfection over there, but over here, that will be their fate." As they walked, they approached the fourth circle where Pluto was. Papi Satan, Lepe," Pluto began with his hoarse voice. "Virgilio told me, don't worry or fear him. Stay safe. Remember that no matter how much power he has, he cannot stop our descent." Then he turned to Pluto and shouted, "Shut up, cursed wolf. Consume your rage within yourself. Our descent has purpose, as it is desired from the heights." After Virgilio spoke, Pluto fell silent, and the two continued on their way along the edge of the circle. From there, it was clear this circle held more souls than the previous two. They were divided into two groups. They kept throwing weights that collided with each other. And when that happened, one side would start asking questions to the other. One half would ask why they spent so much, while the other would ask why they saved so much. Then they would turn and take opposite paths until they collided on the other side of the circle, and so it continued forever. Then Dante asked his guide group, who were those souls? All of them, the master replied, in their earthly life were not judicious with their spending. They declare this when they meet in their opposing faults. Those with bald crowns are clerics, popes, and cardinals, in whom greed is more easily manifested. Dante then says that somehow he could recognize some people there. But Virgilio corrects him. "Your hope is useless," replied the master. "Their life without knowledge made them filthy, and now it's harder to recognize them. Forever those with clenched fists and those without hair will face each other. Wasting and hoarding led them here into this pit, but they're not worth discussing further. You see, son, how it's no use for men to fight over fortune, because all the gold that is or ever was under the moon won't buy even a single minute of rest for these weary souls." Without much delay, they went down to the fifth circle through a dark path where a spring of black boiling water appeared. They followed the water until it led them to a swamp that was called Styx. Even though everything was dark, it was possible to see some figures there who were very angry, hitting each other, tearing off limbs and beating one another. "Son," said the good master, "here you see the souls of those defeated by anger. And I'll tell you more, if you believe me, that beneath the water there are people who sigh, making it bubble. They are defeated by hidden resentment and passive anger, which are equally destructive. They gargle mud and form the bubbles that pop on top of this foul sludge. They walked around this swamp until they reached a great tower. At the top of the tower, there were two flames, and far away in Rio, there were also some lights that kept blinking, as if something wanted to communicate with the tower. Then, Dante turns to Virgilio and asks what those things were and what they meant. But Virgilio told him to be patient, because soon he would find out for himself. Then, suddenly, a little boat appears on the river, being steered by an old man, and he was heading toward the two of them. "Arrows? Arrows? You'll shout in vain this time," my lord replied, "as he will only take us to the other shore." Containing his anger, the boatman agreed. My guide calmly boarded, and then I got in, and only then did the boat seem loaded. As they sailed along that river, suddenly a soul appeared and started talking to Dante, asking who he was, what a living person was doing there. Dante grew angry and said he recognized him, even in that decayed state, and knew all he had done. The soul seemed to get so angry that it jumped onto the boat and went after Dante. But Virgilio was faster and threw that man back into the river. The other souls that were in the lake went after him and said that they were finally going to get Filippo Argenti. And now, my son, called my master. We approached the city called Ditch, with its sorrowful citizens and great company. "Master," I observed, I can already see their mosques just above the infernal valley. They shine red like hot irons. It's the eternal fire burning inside them that makes that crimson glow spread throughout the lower hell," completed Virgilio. They entered through the city's surrounding moat while Fletcher circled it, where iron-like walls could be seen. When they reached the entrance, quickly, Fletcher shouted for the two to get out of his boat. As they got off, they were greeted by a group of demons who asked who was the one that, without death, was walking through the underworld. Virgilio then stepped forward and made signs, saying that he wanted to speak with them alone. "Dear my guide, I cried in despair that so many times you detest me. So much safety, please. Do not leave me now. Otherwise we cannot continue on this journey. Let us return at once without delay." But he, confident, answered me, "Do not fear, because no one can stop our progress. But wait here and rest. Do not stop feeling safe, for you can be sure that I will not leave you alone in this lower world." He said that and went to meet with the devils. I just watched from afar. I didn't hear the conversation. I only saw the fight from afar. And the city gate closed in front of Virgilio, who came back to me, head down, walking slowly. "Look who's denying me the city of pain," he said sadly. "But don't worry, I'll overcome this trial." By now, there must already be someone at the gate of this hell for whom this entrance will be opened. Dante then, at that moment, together with Virgil, would enter the sixth circle of hell, and there they would encounter several well-known figures, such as Medusa and the Furies. But that's a topic for another video. If you want this series to continue, please like, subscribe, share, and comment on this video. All right then, thanks in advance. See you.